You have to find the right distance. First, I want to start. Someone left their phone at the front desk. It's got a little daisy on the back corner. And you didn't miss it the whole time. I panic. Where's my phone? And it's in my hand sometimes. Because you're just used to holding it and you don't realize it. Anyway, welcome to First Friday Breakfast Club. Might have to turn it down a little. I'm Byron Huff, FFBC president. My pronouns are he, him. At this time, I'd like to offer any new FFBC attendee to introduce themselves. I know we have a couple.
Help build a state that we should be proud of. Clean water, working on affordability, and investing in working families. If I were elected, I would be the first open Yankee. I've heard that often kind of topics as well. So happy to be here. Thanks for being here.
Okay, welcome. I hope now can everyone hear me? We turned it down. Okay. I have to stay closer now. Anyone else? I thought there was another one. Don't be shy. There was someone, I swear. I guess they're shy. Okay. Well, welcome whoever is new and didn't want to stand up. Shouldn't be shy in this crowd. FFBC is an association of LGBTQ plus individuals and their allies formed in 1996, is a 501c3 entity making contributions tax deductible. Since formation, we have awarded over $550,000 for scholarships awarded annually to high school seniors who have done significant things in their communities and schools to educate on LGBTQ issues. We awarded $23,000 scholarships this past June. And now we're in our 2026 season, so any donations will go towards our June 2026 award. Excuse me. The scholarships are awarded regardless of gender identity, sexual orientation, or other protected characteristics. This is all thanks to our generous donors who recognize the value of FFBC scholarships. I hope you'll consider a donation if you have not. FFBC sends only 2 emails a month, one for our meeting and one for our newsletter. So if you're not receiving them, send a message or let someone know. And there's also a slip up at the front desk. You can fill out your information. Newsletter deadline will be the second Monday prior to the breakfast meeting, which will be November 24th. Anyone is welcome to submit an article. Be sure and follow us on Facebook, YouTube. We do archive our videos and so forth out on YouTube. You'll find links on our website. And announcements. Zach, you wanted to announce something? Yeah. You want to come up? Come up. Okay.
First, thank you for everyone that came to our gala. We raised this much as we had raised before. We had a record-setting crowd. But 2, you have another chance to support queer and trans youth across the state of Iowa. We're hosting a holiday drag brunch on Sunday, December 14th. Local queens will be running it. It'll be great. Tickets start at $50, go up to $100. But you can find it all on our Facebook and things like that. So if you're free on Sunday the 14th, we'd love to see you. And again, all those proceeds go to help queer and trans youth across the state. So thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Anyone else? I think that was it. At least who told me they had something. Capital City Pride created a community calendar. You'll find a link on their website. LGBTQ events across, and there are a lot, far more than you would think. So I encourage people to go look at it. You can go to Capital City Pride website, and I think maybe we have a link there too, don't we? To that calendar, Wade? Yeah, okay. And if you have an event, you can submit it and for approval, but they'll post your event out there. Our next board of directors meeting will be Tuesday, November 11th, 6:30 p.m. Let me know. Members are welcome to join us. And now Scott will introduce our speaker.
Morning, everyone. Jonathan Wilson wanted to be here to present and introduce Matt. Unfortunately, he's on an airplane and he's trying to get to Denver. So that may or may not happen. As everyone is aware, there's some issues with, well, Department of Transportation at the moment. So before I get into Jonathan's introduction, I just wanted to take a moment, Matt, and just recognize your many impressive achievements, city, state, country. I'm humbled to be able to introduce you. So Matt Blake began his legal career at the Drake University School of Law. In his first semester, he lived with Jonathan Wilson and me at our house in Des Moines, Iowa. From day one, it was apparent that he held progressive policy ideals and was politically ambitious for the opportunity to lead on those ideals. He graduated from law school with honors and was admitted to practice law. And he married his spouse, Alaina, and they have 2 young children together. Matt is an Army veteran and served in Kuwait and Iraq in 2021. And he's affiliated in practice with the Dixon Bradshaw Law Firm and remains an active member of the Army National Guard as well. Among other community service endeavors from 2019 to 2023, Matt served on the Urbandale City Council as well. Last year, he chose to seek election to the Iowa Senate and accomplished another great community service by removing Brad Zahn from the Iowa State. Please welcome Iowa Senator Matt Blake.
Thank you. That was the nicest intro I think I've ever had. Most people are usually snide in some way, so I appreciate just the very good candor there. Thank you all for inviting me here today. When Jonathan called me and asked this and talked to me this week about what we should be talking about and what I should discuss while I'm here today, he said, just talk about what you want. And I was like, thank you for the wildly specific and precise way of helping me try to focus in my conversation here today. But I wanted to just take a little time. He did mention that maybe do just kind of an overview of what's happening in our state from a political standpoint, maybe on the election side a little bit. And then because I'm a state senator, I will kind of get into what I see as the big issues that will be facing our state this next legislative session. I actually usually prefer just getting questions from the audience and then just answering them because I find that much more rewarding because I can sit and talk. I'm a billable attorney and I bill by the minute, so I know how to talk. Oh, sorry, we got another 10 minutes here. Sorry. But so I will just briefly kind of go over what's going on, and then I would like to move quickly to questions. So again, at the state level, I'm sure this seems like a group that's probably very well aware. But here in the state of Iowa, we do have probably one of the most tumultuous years of politics that's coming up this next year. We are used to stability in our political structure. We have Chuck Grassley. But we also hold records of longest serving attorney general in U.S. history with Tom Miller. We have the longest serving governor in U.S. history with Terry Branstad. That is the norm for Iowa politics. But instead, what we have that's moving forward this next year is we have a U.S. senator that's retiring, which has upended a tremendous amount of the seats at the federal level. And we have a governor that's retiring, which has upended a large amount of ambitious people to try to run for things at the state level. And so we are looking at a massive amount of election turnover, both at the federal level and at the state level, because many of our Congress people, again, we have 4 Congress people, are running for higher office. We have Ashley Hinson, who is opting to run for U.S. Senate, which means that her congressional seat is open, which is the northeast side or northeast part of our state. Randy Feenstra, one of our other Congress people, is running for governor. And so that opens up the 4th district. And the 2 people that are currently running for re-election, in the 3rd district, Zach Nunn and Miller Meeks in the 1st district, those are some of the most competitive congressional races in the country. So we're going to see a tremendous amount of focus actually be focused in on Iowa. But there's also this governor's race. And this governor's race is getting a lot of attention, because there is a particular candidate, and you can, again, I'm a Democrat. I don't know whether I'm in mixed company here, but I am okay. Well, I got one over here. It's like, just do what you need to do. But so I am a supporter of Rob Sand, and he is getting, well, thank you. Yeah. I don't know why I'm getting a clap for Rob Sand, but I appreciate that. And he is getting a lot of national attention because of he is looking like somebody that might be able to flip this state. And this state is not easy to do. There is a tremendous amount of Republican registered in this state. And even with trying to get every Democrat and almost all the independents, you still need to peel some Republicans to make it happen currently. And again, there might be some people that just are registered that way to go caucus and some of these things, but you have to thread a very thin needle to try to make that to happen. So it is the fact that we have national folks starting to talk about our gubernatorial race is a really good sign. And I can tell you from hearing from my colleagues on the other side, they're scared. They're scared of what 26 is going to look like. But again, I'm a legislator. I don't play in those politics because my wife, when I was asked to potentially run for a statewide office, she was like, well, I won't say exactly what she said, but she said, no effing way. So, because I have a 5 and a 2-year-old. So she's like, you just got done with the most competitive legislative race in the state of Iowa. I was like, yeah. She's like, no, sit down. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, honey. I enjoy this two-way conversation. But this next legislative session, we will have some decent big topics on the table. What is likely to be the topics that we will spend the vast majority of our time talking about, I think will be 3 issues they want us to talk about, but there will be a 4th that they don't want us to talk about. The first is going to be the carbon pipeline. That was the most contentious debate this last session this year that brought us into extra overtime. We have been told on our Senate side that the new Republican majority leader will be seeking to try to get that passed in the first few weeks so they can get it off the table. But that is one of the lingering issues that crosses party lines in unique ways. And we will have to see what comes out, whether we have a similar vote to what we had last time or we have a more compromised language. We'll just have to see where that debate goes. The next one, which I'm hearing actually from my Republican colleagues saying that this is something that they have to address, is water quality. From what they are hearing, even from their constituents, is that this is rising to be one of the top issues in the state. And I think that there will be something that has to be done on this because it is growing to a spot where it is beginning to boil over. And they need to make sure that they can go out into their communities and have something that's said about this, or they're not going to be able to, or there might be some blowback because as much as we believe that we're in this wonderful agricultural state, I enjoy I enjoy drinking water and being able to live here. And so we need to have this balance between these two. And I have talked to ag groups and they realize it too. So there should be some discussion. I can't promise we're going to see action on it, but I think that will be a part of the conversation this year. And then the last one, which we were talking at our table just with Supervisor McCoy, is property taxes. That Governor Reynolds currently is going across the state in closed door meetings with her Republican colleagues, so a very diverse group of thoughts, trying to determine what is the best path forward with property taxes. So I'm a former city council member. I understand that there are some pain points with property taxes. I completely understand that. But the problem is they've already made some cuts to this. They've already put caps into the system. I was telling the story at my table that I have met with the police chief in Waukee earlier this year, and he was telling me, and this is the biggest growing, fastest growing city in our state, that their budget or their perspective of the growth, they need somewhere between 8 and 12 more police officers, but because of our caps already put in place, they can only afford 3 to 4. So if we put further restrictions on this, we may see police officers not being hired, but we may see public libraries, we may see parks, we may see some of these things that are additional qualities of life in our communities start being cut because we have nothing else that we are able to provide. But this leads into what I think is the fourth issue that they will not want to talk about, is the massive budget deficit that the Republican administration has put into place. And I'm very clear about that. We have not, my party has done nothing to add to this deficit. So to put this into perspective, we have, with the new numbers, we have a $1.3 billion deficit. And we have a $9.1 billion budget. We brought in $8.1 billion in revenue. That means roughly 13, 14, 15% of the budget is backfill that they are paying out of reserve funds. And they're saying that this is all part of the plan, that this was all a strategy, because they said, well, you've saved up too much money, which, you know, we can argue about whether that money was, how that money was saved or whether it needs to be used. But this is a structural deficit. They claim that at some point in time, we will outgrow this and our budget and our deficit will disappear. I don't know what math they're using, magic math, but they probably use very rosy colored glasses when they put that analysis together, and we're working on it, I will admit, but I don't see, with our negative growth that we've incurred or marginal growth in the state, how we are ever going to catch up. And the budget deficit only continues to grow. And so this next year, I'm going to be honest, it's going to be very tough for my party to stand up there and start arguing and trying to argue for new funding for anything, because it would be irresponsible in many ways for us to try to add to a deficit that we didn't create. So that will be the biggest challenge that will actually probably flavor most of everything we debate about this upcoming session, is the fact that we have this massive deficit and it's only getting bigger. Part of me wonders if they're just doing it because eventually Governor Rob Sand gets in, and then it becomes a bipartisan issue and we have to work together to try to fix the deficit. But until that time, it is completely there. So those are kind of the big issues that we're looking at this next session. So I'm going to I could keep talking. Honestly, I could keep going. But I actually prefer switching over to questions, because I think that's more impactful, is just answering what you guys have to say. So does anybody have any quick questions, or, okay, go ahead. Oh, yes. Yes. Well, those, to be clear, are terrible ideas to start with, first and foremost. With the IPERS portion of it, the Republicans have all said that they don't want to touch that. That is a massive political gamble for them to try to even touch that one. And they know it too. The minute that the DOJ report came out last time that had any inkling of trying to touch IPERS, all my Republican colleagues were like, no, 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 we're not going to do that. Though it made me laugh a little bit. There was a particular Republican state senator that was like, this is false. It's just a report. We're not going to do anything. This is just a bunch of hoopla, whatever. And then the next post was, pay for performance is really a good idea. I look forward to working on it. I was like, how disconnected are you in your messaging? But when it comes to the pay for performance, and does everybody know when we're talking about this from the IPERS perspective? Okay. So what was proposed was moving IPERS, which is the pension system for the state. It is one of the gold standards. It's one of the most well-funded and well-run public pension systems in the country. I'm actually sitting on the budget subcommittee that oversees IPERS, so I've been able to see that their numbers, and they are doing very, very well. What the DOJ report asked for was to say, let's shift away that all the new employees shift over to basically a 401k system. And that's not a great idea because first, switching it over, it jeopardizes the funding for all the people that we currently have on the pension system. And then two, when you're trying to get people to be paid less money to work in public service, work as a teacher, work one of these things of that nature, the pension is about the best incentive you have to get these people into these systems. So if you're going to be taking people from being able to get higher pay and private pay to go work in our schools, go work in our states, go work in our cities, we are not going to be able to get the individuals we need. And if you want to continue this spiral downhill, and just then that's one of those things that will do that. Because, taking a step aside, like, one of the reasons I ran for office, one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing and only sleeping 4 hours a night because I have 4 or 5 jobs, is because of the fact that Iowa, when I moved here, and I'm originally from South Dakota, and I came here for law school. When I originally moved to Iowa, Iowa was kind of this purplish state that focused on public service to people. We don't have beautiful mountains, we don't have, a sports team, we don't have some of these things, but what we had were good people, good jobs, and good public institutions that brought people to be this state and stay here. And it seems to me from this current administration, every one of those is being attacked by our current administration. Our public schools and our public institutions trying to scare some good people out of this state, and our jobs are disappearing too. So this is the problem that we're having at the state. And so when they talk about trying to gut IPers, I was like, that's why I mean, are we running downhill faster? We're just trying to take away tools of anything to try to recruit people. And pay for performance, there are so many factors when it comes to teaching. I have a 5-year-old in kindergarten. I don't know how you would ever pay for performance a kindergarten teacher. None of those kids can listen. My son goes a year-round school in Urbandale that's in a kind of a diverse population. When I walked in there the first day, there was 3 kids that I don't think spoke English. How could you factor in somebody of that nature, trying to pay them higher performance when they have 3 people that they can't even teach? So this is the issue that I have with pay for performance, is that you can't build metrics that accurately respect, because children have so many other factors in their life. They have so many other hills that they may have to climb, and usually school is the respite that allows them to get away from those. And how are we going to try to tie performance to with factors that aren't impactful to these teachers? So it will be a strong no from me. I think there will be some inklings of it, but I don't see either of those going that far, because it's just so unworkable. And I know some of our friends on the pay for performance part there's some skepticism on that one as well. Other questions? Go ahead. Oh, that's a good one. Well, we need a new governor. For starters. So the voucher system, and again, for those, I'm sure you all are aware, but just point of reference, in the last few years, there was a passage in the state for allowing those that go to private schools to receive a voucher or an ESA or whatever it is of about $7,000 to $8,000 to pay for private schools coming out of public coffers, public money. It costs the state, and it's an uncapped appropriation. So it's however many people want to use it, we pay out. We have no cap to this appropriation. So roughly it's about $300 to $350 million a year of our budget. And again, mention the $1.3 billion budget, they added this in. And now the way it's tied, the system is tied, is that whenever we increase for public funds, SSA funding, it will subsequently be increased the same percentage. So if we increase 2%, that will be increased by 2%. First and foremost, if I had a magic wand, I would love to just get rid of it. But I think the way that, even if we do have a Governor Sand, we have to realize that we still have a Republican legislature. I am not starry-eyed enough to think, even in a massive wave, am I ever going to get the majority this cycle? It's just not going to happen. So what we have to do is probably figure out ways to just scale it back. I could see an argument. I'm not a big believer in vouchers at all, but I could see an argument for maybe lower income folks having access to these funds. Sure. That would cut that 300 million down to about 150. Because right now, it can be any amount of money you can make any amount of money to be able to get a voucher. Elon Musk, who just got a $1 trillion package yesterday, could move to Iowa, and his large amount of kids, could each get a voucher if they chose to get in. There is no cap to that. And so that would be, to me, the first way to strike at it is just try to roll it back to maybe a more appropriate way of handling this. But I think the goal would be eventually to do away with them. But it will take it takes some leverage, and I need some more friends to make that happen. Try to elect Cody Smith. Go ahead.
Any discussion within the budget to repeal the I will amendment?
So the I will amendment, which is, so for those that don't know the I will amendment, that was the requirement in the Constitution that if there was an increase of the sales tax, that a portion of it needs to go to water quality, conservation, things of that nature. They got a little frisky with it a little bit with that in this session, and it was shot down pretty quick. I think they might attempt it again, and then because they have revenue problems. I don't know. It was approved by everybody in a constitutional amendment, so I don't see it being something that is too favored up there, because they also have members of their coalition, such as the concept like the Ducks Unlimited, those type of. Not saying that Ducks Unlimited or Pheasants Forever and all those are purely partisan, but those organizations have come strongly in favor of I wills, and so it's not one of those that. It's something they're looking at because they have such a revenue problem, and they did play around with it a little bit, but I don't see that going that far. Other questions? Okay.
A lot of the jobs in this community are, in the insurance industry,
Mhm.
the banking industry. A lot of that is basic entry data, things like that. With any talk of AI, how much that's going to decimate that work population?
Ooh, you have a really small question that has no big implications. No, that is actually something that I wouldn't say it keeps me up at night, but we talk about a lot. So just again, I'm an attorney that's at a law firm just downtown here, just a few feet away from here. I'm an estate planner, so I do wills and trusts, those type of things. I actually have a niche practice where I do elder law. I help folks with Medicaid spend down issues, guardian conservatorship work, special needs work. Anyway, we were just having a conversation yesterday saying, well, is AI going to take our job someday? Is all the transactional work just going to disappear because somebody's going to input their name and say, do my thing, and it just pops out? So that has been a growing concern, and I've been at some national conferences lately with some other fellow progressives and Democrats, and that has always been a topic of how do we regulate, how do we maintain. Most of the focus has been right now is kind of how those AI algorithms are created and whether the parameters and how they're used, and it's more of trying to make sure there's no adverse parts of it. But we're getting to the spot where they're looking a little bit towards this human factor of whether AI can start taking away jobs and start doing, because mentioning this conversation with my estate planning, we were in a team and I was talking about, well, maybe we can just have this form that's filled out, then we input it in, and then our forms get uploaded all the system. And all the legal assistants were like, so our jobs disappear? I was like, no. Okay, we won't do the thing. So that is a question I have kind of thought through, and I don't know whether I'll have any policy on this lately. We have to see what it goes, but I do wonder if we have to start looking at whether we need some laws in place that need to create a human component in the chain in places to make sure that we don't replace ourselves from being able to do our jobs. So the answer is it's being talked about a lot, but and the problem with innovation in government is government takes a long time to catch up to innovation. And by the time government catches up, innovation is already surpassed. So I can tell you we're talking about it. That wasn't a great answer. That was me dancing around trying to answer it specifically. But it is going to be probably something over the next 10 years is going to be a defining element of our legislating and our policy making going forward. Other questions? Max?
that y'all have not abandoned trans islands like we know. But I know that a lot of Republicans are focusing on trans schools,
Yeah.
platforms. We saw that with governor's campaign very recently. But I do know that we're a little bit unique in that some other states have more Democratic caucuses that have started to wobble a little bit on
Yeah.
these issues. So as we're seeing more folks that want to run for office with the Democratic Party, do you get the sense that you all will be able to continue to advocate for and stand for trans people?
It's a really, really good question. Yes, yes. Just a little, and you know what I did. So this past session, when the gender identity bill was being debated, I'm a ranking member on Judiciary Committee. And so they handed me the defense or the Democratic lead in the Senate to fight that bill. My second debate I ever had was spending hours on the floor arguing on the gender identity bill. And just, I'm going to take a little personal moment on that is, and the part that I will always remember about that debate is actually not parts of the arguments that occurred at the debate. You see, I was on the subcommittees and committees that led up to it. And there was a trans activist that was at all these committees. And when they called me out with a note after the debate was done, and I walked out, and they were just crying. And without saying a word, I went up and I hugged them, and I just let them cry in my chest for 20 or 30 seconds, which is the moment that I will always remember about that. And I only tell that is because that experience, I think, really pushed our caucus to confront it head on. There might be candidates that run that waffle, and I wish I could say that that's not going to happen, but they will. But I can at least speak for the folks that fought that battle, that has put us in a new. It will be tough for me to ever back away from, because I was me personally, I was very public about it. And so was everybody that took a vote on that record. So I think the electeds won't be abandoning in any way, because we've had to fight in this fight already. We will do what we can. Yeah, it's a tough battle. But anyway, we should have at least a few more questions that are more positive. No, but that's an impactful, that's a positive. But I usually like ending on a positive note, but it was, we'll go in the back. Go ahead. Yeah.
Many years ago, Jim Flansburgh was the chief political reporter for the Register. He said the Iowa Republicans had a secret weapon. It was the Iowa Democrats.
Yeah.
Seems like Trump is presenting one golden opportunity in this tariff thing, because you've got the soybean farmers that are crying because of what's happening between China and Argentina and all, so that the potential. Can the Democrats actually run effective campaigns to possibly flip the House and maybe change things in the state? Was Flansburgh right?
Oh, that's a good skeptical question that I appreciate. But I mean, it is that there are some headwinds that are moving our way. There are some ability for the governor to win, and we pick up seats in the House. And again, unlike the Senate, we only have half of our seats up every 2 years. So it's extremely difficult for the Senate to ever flip in just one election, which is also why we held the Senate for as long as we did up through 16, is because once we capture it, it's tough to take it away. That being said, I know that we are trying to do our best to refocus in our campaigns on bread and butter issues about affordability, the economic issues that are facing our state. But there is also but half the fact and half the issue is getting good candidates. I can say from some experience on the Senate side, because we've had some experience with this in being in the 2 special elections here in the state of Iowa that we flipped with Zimmer and Caitlin Dray, is that you do need some good recruiting to make that happen. So if we have some good folks that are standing up, raising their hand and willing to fight the fight and get into the arena, we might have a chance. But you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, yeah, absolutely, we'll do these things. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. And I think Democrats will do everything we can. This week with the elections that we had across the country, people are fed up. People are tired. And with the right messaging in the right spot, that is going to be something that we can do. You know, there is this issue that I've seen, and this is much broader conversation, that politics have become a little bit nationalized. And what we're beginning to feel, and which is where Rob Sand has been having this kind of talk at the national level, I've noticed, is that you have the new mayor of New York, who is literally a socialist, and the contrast they're using is Rob Sand. And they're talking about how can a party have these 2 folks in it? And that's the analysis, is that the way that Democrats are supposed to win is we need that big of a party. We need the Rob Sands and we need the Mamdani. Sorry, I never learned his name. I apologize. I live in Iowa. So you can, and to have both sides of the spectrum, that's how we need to win, is that we need to be able, we don't need to have just this litmus test that we need one type of candidate. We need all types of candidates that want to move the progressive and the Democratic brand forward. The person that wins, Mike Zimmer, I don't think I could win in Mike Zimmer's district. Mike Zimmer probably couldn't win in my district. So we have, and again, because he represents a rural area. I am a suburban dad. Look at me. I mean, I perfectly fit into a suburban district. Like, that is the type of, so we have to tailor our messaging and tailor our people to where we're running our folks. Okay. I don't know where I'm at on time. 5 minutes. All right. Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Maybe back on politics a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, at the national level, some of the Democrats will say, you know, Republicans vote for this, but behind the scenes, when I talk with them personally, they kind of say, yeah, we wish we could, but we're voters in the party. If you bring that back to Iowa, you know, obviously Republicans have like a firm grasp on everything. Are there Republicans you can work with and that aren't so bad?
No, that's a good question.
Can you name them?
No. I don't want to out them in any way. I need them to be secret. No, there are a couple. And so just as an aside, and I don't like talking about this that much publicly, but what I used to do before I was a private practice attorney, I hate using this word, I was a lobbyist. I represented nonprofit aging service providers, which again ties in my private practice with elder care. I didn't have a PAC, no power. I just knew a lot of things about nursing homes. And so what I learned from that experience is that you can quickly tell who are the ones that are the doers and who are just there because they like the seat and they like the attention. And when you find the doers, when you find those folks that get up there and are away from their family and they're doing it because they want to try to make the state better. I disagree with their philosophy on how to do it, but they want to be able to make the state better. Those are the folks, regardless of even some of their political stripes and their hardness on their political views, do tend to be people that want to work to move forward on things. And so I tend to find those folks, from my experience up there, to try to get that done. But there are some that are just there because they really like to come down into the state. They liked the attention. They like being a senator or being a House member. Those are the folks you just ignore and you just move past them, because if you seek out the doers, the people that want to do the good work. So there's sometimes, again, in the Senate, there hasn't been a Democratic bill that's passed in 8 years. and they haven't had an amendment that has a Democratic name on it in 8 years, and that's been a hard rule. We've heard inklings that the new majority leader might let up on that rule a little bit, but it is tough to. So what Democrats have to do, and this also happens in the Iowa House as well, is if we have an idea, we go to these Republicans that we can work with and be like, hey, can you put your name on this and move it forward? And if you have a good relationship, they'll say yeah. And so that's unfortunately the way that some of my colleagues, and I'm new enough where I haven't been able to completely facilitate that yet. But that's how it works right now. So there are some, but usually it's not going to be on the big issues. It's not going to be on tax policy. It's not going to be on school policy. It's going to be for the little things that move the needle that aren't per se partisan, that we can get a little bit of movement here or there on. Okay.
In the last few years, there's been a lot about voter suppression, and it's occurring in Iowa. Are there any new things that are going to come up on voter suppression?
Oh, they try every year. Even just this last year, where they made it allowable that a poll worker can challenge citizenship at the polls, and you have to prove it. And I got up on the floor and I was like, okay, how do you prove citizenship? Well, I was like, is it your driver's license? No. I was like, your social security? No. So I was like, are people going to have to bring their birth certificate there? Well, no, everybody that's a citizen will just be, I was like, what is the difference between you and I going in there and somebody challenging me to being a citizen? And they're like, well, nothing. I was like, because you can get the hint of what they're actually trying to look at here. But in reality, you could have a person under this new law that passed sit there and challenge every single person that comes in. Are you a citizen? Are you a citizen? Are you a citizen? And if they don't have the documentation to prove that, which is a birth certificate usually, or immigration papers, et cetera, they won't be able to vote. And I told them, I was like, you are basically requiring everybody in the state to carry a birth certificate to the polls. No, we're not. Yes, you are. And so these are the things that they've run out of ideas, and now they keep throwing it out because, again, the problem is they don't believe people voting is a good thing. They like certain people voting. And when you have a group of people that they don't particularly like to vote, they'll do whatever it can to stop. Again, it will come up. I don't know what version or form. They're running out of ideas, in my opinion, but they'll figure something out. Okay, we'll go with Matt, and that's the last one.
Look at where things are going with structural deficits we've run the past 2 years and the tax cuts fully implemented along with the voucher giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
How long will Iowa continue to have a taxpayer surplus fund tab?
Yeah.
And where do we hit the wall and crack?
That's
Especially
yeah.
Eric's farming.
Yep. So I've actually asked our staff to do that exact analysis, and they haven't gotten back to me on it yet. The Zoom and YouTube people. So the question is, when are we going to run out of money? To put it succinctly here, I'm trying to ask our staff to try to do an analysis, because my assumption is, now we're going to get a little nerdy here, I'm going to do it, is that they base this entire analysis of this budget off of maybe a 4% growth model. I think that the only information we've gotten from the Department of Management has shown over 5 years we have a deficit. And my bet with that 5 years on that deficit, it was on a 4% growth model. So when we're looking at 1 to 2% growth, that is a big gap between what is assumed for getting us out of the hole and what's not. So we have roughly about 4.5 billion left, maybe a little bit more left. And we have a $1.3 billion deficit this year. Presumably, we are not going to be growing anymore. So we will probably increase that deficit, because they will still have to do things like, presumably, I don't know what the Republicans will do. But if we have increased teachers, SSA, some of these other things, that deficit will grow. So just using logic, of unless we get a massive turnaround in our economy where we're having a 5 to 6% growth increase, which I don't see happening right now. I think by 2027, 28, that is going to be the crucible where we are going to have to figure out whether we raise revenue or we do massive cuts. And right now, the Republicans are trying very hard to make it harder to raise income tax. Right now, they just passed they're seeking to propose an amendment, and it has to go through the House, and I think it's the second round, so we may see it on the ballot this, not 26, but 28, where it will require a 2/3 vote of the legislature in order to raise income taxes, which is just impossible. You could have a majority of both parties seeking to try to raise income taxes, but there will be so many hardline folks in that building that it's just near impossible to do. So what that does then is it shifts any increases in revenue in the state to either property taxes, which they're trying to cut because that's one of three, or sales tax, which is a wildly regressive tax because wealthy people don't, we consume similar amounts as those with less money. But that is a higher percentage of income of those with less money every time they pay with regressive tax. I believe in progressive taxation. I believe that the wealthy should pay more. But the way that our system with the flat tax is, it won't get that way. So I know it's a sin sometimes to talk about revenue increase, but there's just no other way other than massive cuts to education, massive cuts to Medicaid, massive cuts to every infrastructure project we have, and all the other public safety, et cetera, et cetera. There's just not enough money. Like they usually, when we get on these debates, the Republicans stand up and they go, that one time when you Democrats cut it by 10%. And I'm going to be able to stand up this session and be like, you have a 14% budget. We couldn't even balance the budget if we did it this time. So this is something that we're going to have to fight against, is that there is another part of this, is that I have debated the Republicans, and they have a hubris saying that this is fine. And they actually, some of them truly don't believe that this is wrong and that this will all turn around and this is okay. And so it will be a shock to their system in about 2 years when when all the money's gone and they have to figure out how to handle this deficit. So, but again, it becomes bipartisan because we'll have Governor Sand. So that's what I think they'll do. But all right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, that discussion could go on and on, unfortunately. I mean, there's so many issues. In my newsletter article, I put a bunch of what I thought were high-level issues that Iowa is dealing with. And there were a few more that even came up, and the list is so long. Carbon pipeline is, I mean, people don't want the pipeline to run near them, but it also helps the farm economy because it supports ethanol. So it's a balance. It's like, we love the pipeline, just don't put it near me. Well, it's true of anything, a lot of things. But water quality, we had Farm Bureau speak. They have one perspective there. It's a very strong lobby that advocates for farmers. But our next speaker in January represents the Iowa Farmers Union. They have a different take on it. So it's a balance, and would support or encourage everyone to come and hear Matt Russell. Water quality, yeah, and property taxes. It's a compromise on quality of life. Eventually, you cut and cut. Well, we can't support buses, or we can't support whatever because we cut taxes and we can't pay for it. It's always a balance. No one wants to pay taxes, but they all want to benefit from them. Budget deficit, yeah, you're using your savings account. Everyone likes to have a little bit of money put aside. The state needs it too, not just spend it down. And then blame Democrats because they've spent all the money and now all of a sudden, no, we have to raise taxes. So then the Republicans will say, well, look, see what the Democrats did? They raised taxes. Well, only because you cut them too much. On and on. Wow, I could I have a whole list of things I was typing when he was speaking. So we'll move on from that. December, next month, December 5th, will be Sarah Trone-Garriott, who is a minister, little of that, and she's also a Democratic state senator. So we'll have another perspective. I think you'll find her very interesting. And in January, I want to mention January, first Friday is January 2nd. We moved the meeting to the 9th, a week later, because it lands right at a holiday weekend. Hoyt Sherman actually closes down. So make note of that. It's the second Monday, and that will be Matt Russell, Executive Director of Iowa Farmers Union. And so consult our newsletter and our website for speakers. We're booked out through April right now. I hope all of you can join us again. Invite friends, and thank you, and have a great weekend.